Our second guest is Fran Salone-Pelletier, the lead volunteer chaplain at Brunswick Novant Medical Center. Well, welcome to the show today, Fran. It's such a pleasure to have you.
And it's a pleasure to be with you, as it always is, June.
Thank you. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself, Fran.
Well, I am a wife, a mother, a grandmother of 4, and a professional religious educator for, almost 40 years.
Wow.
In fact, I think a little bit more than 40 years as I count them back.
Wow, that's great. Well, we're here today to talk about the chaplaincy program at Brunswick Novant Medical Center. Could you tell us a little bit about that program, Fran?
The program has been in existence for as long as the hospital has been in existence, but it's come a long way. It's come from being a program where local clergy sort of came and visited patients at will and did a good job. However, as the time has gone by, years have gone by, we have become much more professional, and it is not local clergy. There are folks who are dedicated to being chaplains as their ministry, and they come to us either with previous experience, or if not with the previous experience in education, they go through an educational process before becoming chaplains. There's the chaplaincy program. I guess people sometimes think that chaplains are local clergy, and in large part they are, in the sense that they do have churches here, but the program is specific to the needs of hospital patients and not to a general congregation.
Oh, I see. Are you yourself one of the chaplains at the facility?
Yes, I am the lead chaplain, have been for a number of years, and very happily so. And I'm also the administrative liaison from the chaplaincy program to the staff at the, I call it staff, it's a general term I use, all of those who are in charge at the hospital.
Why were you interested in becoming a chaplain, Fran?
Well, most interestingly, I wasn't interested. My husband, being my husband, decided that this was something that I needed to do to broaden my spiritual experience and deepen my own spirituality, and I was terrified. I had not done that kind of work, and I was not very certain that I would enjoy it. But his impelling force in my life was such that I decided I would give it a go, and I love it.
Knowing your husband as I do, I can fully understand that he would do something like that to you, but he was right. He was right to do that. And I understand that you're the lead chaplain, so what all does that entail?
Well, generally speaking, I facilitate our monthly meetings. As I said earlier, I'm the contact between the chaplaincy program, all the chaplains,
and
administration. I also represent the chaplains at some of the major functions of Brunswick Novant Medical Center, and try with all the other chaplains, I must say, I don't do this as a lone ranger, try to find additional folks to join us in the program.
Speaking of that, how many chaplains are there currently in the program?
We currently have 15 chaplains, 5 of whom have chosen, instead of taking on-call weeks, they've chosen to be what I have kind of loosely termed day chaplains, in that we have coverage Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday in lieu of their taking an on-call week. And the chaplain on call does all the emergencies for that time period, but doesn't have to do rounds.
So that's quite a bit of coverage.
Absolutely. We do offer 24/7.
Really?
Yes.
What might be the appropriate time to call a chaplain? I mean, when does someone call a chaplain?
A chaplain can be called anytime a patient or a staff member or a patient's member of patient's family decides that they would really like to have a listening ear. That would be, I would say, our primary function, that we are active listeners. We, again, unlike local clergy, we are not there in any way to evangelize or proselytize. We are simply there to be that presence, that spiritual presence, which statistics have found has been absolutely essential in the healing process.
Can you give us an example of a type of situation where volunteers typically get called in for?
Well, we would get called on any emergency. We get called if someone is in close to dying. In fact, we would hope that the family would give us a call a little bit sooner rather than a little bit later, because the chaplains, because we are all volunteers and we all live at distances, there is a time frame for our being able to get to the hospital. So those kinds of emergencies, if a patient just wants to talk, if a patient is afraid, previous to surgery, post-surgery, you know, any time where there is a sense of discomfort, a sense that a patient wishes to just talk to someone and doesn't want to be necessarily talking to a doctor or a nurse.
Sure. Yeah. If I'm in the hospital and I want those services, how do I go about getting those services of a chaplain?
Any of the nurses could contact us. We carry a pager. The on-call chaplain has a pager, and I have a separate pager because I'm like the backup for all the chaplains. In the event that the on-call chaplain cannot make it, then I'm called. So because we have a pager, any member of the staff can contact us on via the pager, or the women who work and men who work at the reception desk. They also can contact. In fact, we kind of clock in with them in the sense
Tell them that you're here.
That we're there at the hospital so that they know we're on site. And they also know, obviously, if we're not on site, and they're able to call us.
And would that same process be used for during the night, anytime during the night? Is that the same process?
Yes. We've been called, I can recall a couple of times, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, where someone really is in need of a chaplain. Usually those are cases where there's a death, an imminent death.
Oh, I see.
And we also have gotten called on some very serious accidents, the great fire that occurred at Ocean Isle Beach, any of those kinds of times. We try our best, and so far, given the fact that we're all volunteers, I think we've done a marvelous job.
It sounds like it. It sure does. Now, I know that there's a chapel in the hospital. Tell me a little bit about that chapel.
The chapel is a real meditation room. It is so designated. There is a space for private prayer. There's a space for congregational prayer. One can just sit there and be quiet and be in the presence of God by whatever name one calls God. There's also a prayer book, or I guess I won't call it a prayer book, more like a journal, where patients,
you can write in it?
You can write in it, and
that's great.
And that has been greatly used. And all the chaplains who do rounds check that book when they come into the hospital, and they pray for all those people in a particular way and indicate so on the book.
Oh, that's wonderful, Fran. Sounds like a great program.
I hope so.
Well, before we close, is there anything else that you'd like to share with our viewers out there?
Yes, I think I'd like to ask if there is anyone who's interested in this ministry and who would really like to make that kind of commitment. It does require a commitment. We do meet monthly, 10 months out of the year, and we do take on-call weeks, and those weeks are, depending on the number of chaplains at the present moment, there's 1 week for each quarter at least, so that all the coverage is there.
And there is training involved,
There is training involved, and at present we represent about 6 denominations, so those who are of other than the 6 that we presently represent will be most welcome.
And if anyone out there is interested, how might they make that contact? Should they just call the main number at the hospital?
Call the main number at the hospital, and they will contact me.
I see.
And I will contact my husband, who is in charge of education.
Well, thank you so much for being here today, Fran. It's been a pleasure to get to know you, and it sounds like a great program.
Well, thank you, and I am so glad that you asked me to come.
You're welcome.